FileMaker Pro Dallas FileMaker Pro User Group. I'm virtually here, keeping warm in the backyard here, and it's lovely weather. I hear we may get up to 70 degrees today, so later on. So anyway, it's wonderful up here. But anyway, I will be back next week to Dallas, so I'm sure there's plenty of heat being saved for me there right now. So anyway, we're looking forward to that. As far as announcements, of course, there's still the pause on air, but I think they've gone great in October if you're interested in that. But I highly encourage that. Claire's hadn't said anything about Engage for 2025, but about that time of year that they should. And then, of course, the other big announcement is we have a new version of FileMaker, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, Fred, back to you.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about some fun things, mainly FileMaker 2024. Let's just all agree to convince Claris to call it what it should be, 2024, so we're not confused when we see 21 whilst trying to install, shall we? That is my input for today. To start off, we're going to be talking about some of the non-AI features because everyone wants to talk about AI, and really the reality of it is most of us haven't figured out how the heck that works. All right, Steve, you're up.
All right. Welcome, everybody, locally and virtually. I am just back from a 3-week trip, someplace cooler, and was welcomed by the heat as I got off the airplane. So I need you to bear with me today because you are seeing the result of 2 solid hours of panicked programming this morning, testing out this feature that I'm going to be demonstrating. But I will say that I think it's pretty cool. It's a simple thing. And so before I get into that, so on our harmonicdata.com Learning Lamp page announcing this, there is a link to the Claris release notes. And I think what I would like to do post digging into 3, we were going to do 4, but one of our presenters is under the weather. So post digging into 3 specific items that we've identified as we think pretty cool. I'm very interested in having a roundtable discussion with all of you about the rest of what's in here. Things that we want to call out and identify as interesting or say, what the heck is that? For instance, I will readily admit that I don't know why transactions new and improved matter. And since Ms. McHugh is not going to be with us today to explain that, maybe we can figure it out together. Stuff like that. So, and we're not talking about AI this month because we're going to talk about it next month. We're going to dig into AI as a feature specific to FileMaker 2024 version 21, as Fred alludes to. Next month, in next month's FMPug, stay tuned for more details. So with that, the feature that I decided to talk about is buried way down in here. So I'm just going to go in here and do a find for notifications. All right, so I saw this when the README came out. The what's new release notes came out. Configure local notification script step, can't read today, now supports running in FileMaker Pro. Previously supported only in FileMaker Go. And I had this dim recollection of sometime a long time ago where I was like, it'd be really nice to use system notifications with FileMaker. And FileMaker released this script step. It's actually the very same script step. It's not a new script step. They released it way back in FileMaker Go 17, but it hasn't worked in FileMaker Pro on the desktop for whatever combination of reasons until FileMaker 21/2024. It now works on the desktop. Right? So that's what I want to talk about today. Configure local notification. And if you're like me and you saw that it didn't work in Pro, and thus you spend exactly 17 seconds saying, I don't care because I don't use Go, we got to figure out how this thing works. So let's take a few minutes and look at it, understand what it is, what it can do for us. Now, normally when I'm presenting, caveat here, normally when I'm presenting, I'm pretty good about remembering to go up here, and I'm on a Mac, so this is how you adjust your notifications. Go up here and say, do not disturb. I'm not going to do that because that would kind of defeat what it is I'm trying to show you today, which is notifications. So hopefully no tremendously embarrassing or annoying notifications come in while we're demonstrating this. If they do, it's just proof that this is live and real time.
I'll be sure to text you something.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, if we click this guy here, it's going to take us to the help page. Of course, I could have gone into FileMaker and clicked FileMaker Help and typed in notifications and gotten the exact same help page. So configure local notification is a script step. And what it does is it either queues or clears a local notification. What is a local notification, you might ask? Heather, please text me something.
All right.
A local notification, by definition, is a message that your operating system is going to present to you, right? And there's a lot of kind of caveats and issues around that, right? That means that you as a user, depending on how you have your computer set up, have some amount of control over that, right? You can turn them off entirely. You can say, present them to me this way, present them to me that way. There's controls about whether they're grouped and organized in different ways. You have a variety of ways to control what means notifications, right? So Heather sent me a notification, and there, in fact, we have it. Message sent with loud effect. I'm not going to click on that because I don't know what else is in my message thread with my wife, so we're just going to cautiously dismiss that and ignore it. So,
I don't feel very seen or heard. I'm going to send another.
oh no. So, yeah, okay, yeah, thank you. Message received.
Trying to show off the group notification.
Yeah.
There needs to be another notification that says, yes, dear.
So keep in mind that a notification is a thing that is really, it's not handled by the app or the service generating the notification, right? It's handled by your operating system and your particular user preferences. It's different on Mac than it is on Windows, different on iOS than it is on Android, etc., right? But similar to all of them is the fact that it's going to have some place where we can say, what's the message, what's the detail. Sometimes there's options to do a thing or not do a thing. We can clear them, we can ignore them, and the system will keep track of them and group them for us so that days later we can while away entire minutes clearing previously ignored notifications. We can do all kinds of fun stuff with notifications on our system, right? So it behooves us to remember what it is when we think about where might we use it. So what's the difference between a notification and noise, right? A notification, ideally, hopefully, is something useful that the user wants. Noise is, stop it, go away. I didn't need that news article right now. I didn't need that whatever. 9/10 of the mail notifications I get are telling me about the next spam I'm going to need to clear, right? That kind of thing, right? So there's a real danger with notifications that we're just generating noise instead of reminding ourselves that our nephew turned 15 today. Right?
That was not planned.
No, real live and in real time. So think about what kind of notifications would be useful to your users, right? And make sure that it's ideally something that they want, because they can just turn it off, right? They can blissfully ignore it, etc. So hopefully it's something that is helpful to us and not annoying to us, right? On the Mac, because I'm on a Mac, and I'm not going to bother demonstrating this on Windows, but it's a very similar thing. On the Mac, there is a notifications tab in your preferences. And in that notifications tab, there is a section now for FileMaker Pro, right? Didn't used to be there. And by default, when I started playing with this, I was like, I can't make it work. I can't make it work. Why? And then I read the notification that I was getting back, and it said notifications disabled. Well, that is because by default, notifications are turned off, right? So again, I think if we're going to use this, it needs to be something that we want our users to opt into. We're going to ask our users to opt into, and they're probably going to have to go in and turn them on, which means we're going to have to tell them how to turn them on, right? So I turned them on, and I left the default banner setting that kind of jumps out and goes away, which is how I have the rest of my notifications configured. So how does this thing work? It is a verbose script step, but it is a relatively straightforward script step, right? So configure local notifications is a script step for which we do a variety of things. First of all, we tell it what are we doing. Are we either queuing the notification or are we clearing it? Why would you want to clear a notification, all right? I think the reason you'd want to clear it is because one of the ways we avoid annoying our users is that if they've already done a thing, we know that they already did a thing, even though we sent them a notification, maybe we do them the service of clearing that notification. Maybe we haven't presented it yet, right? Because maybe it was going to show up at a future point in time. Well, if we know they already did it and it no longer applies, rather than having a notification pop up later where their response is, I already did that, you dumb machine, maybe we clear it for them, right? So that's why you might want to clear a notification, right? That no longer applies. I know that they did it some other way, right? Why do we want to queue a notification? Because we want to tell them something. And down here, I'm going to skip delay number of seconds before queuing the notification. Now, it's actually not the number of seconds before queuing the notification. Practically speaking, it's the number of seconds before that notification is going to show up, right? So why do we want a future notification? Well, maybe I want to alert you 5 minutes before a meeting, that the meeting is in 5 minutes, right? Well, until it's 5 minutes before the meeting, that I don't want that notification to show up, right? When wouldn't I want a delay? When something becomes true right now that I want you to become aware of and act on immediately, right? I don't want any delay, I just want to pop a notification, right? So it might be some kind of script event or background process or something that says, make a notification happen. The name is not the thing that they're going to read. The name is actually I'm thinking about it as the internal identifier, and it needs to be unique. Why does it need to be unique? Because if you call something by the same name, and you previously had called something by the same name, the new one's going to replace the previous one. All right, so if you don't mean those two to be the same thing, so if the notification is take out the trash, but I want two unique take out the trash notifications because I want one for home and one for office, it can't just be take out the trash, right? It's got to be take out the trash dash some ID or some way of making it unique. It also needs to be something repeatable, right? Because if you create a notification with, let's say, get current timestamp as number, well, that would very likely be unique, right? Because it's only going to be that timestamp once, ever. But the fact that the likelihood that you're going to remember what timestamp that was when you want to clear it after the fact is very low, right? So you may want to make it something that you can reconstruct. Script is what script we're going to run. Title is what it's going to say. Body is the text that it's going to tell us about. And then we've got some buttons and actions, right? So there's all of these different ways to configure what this is. Now, what happens when that thing fires? Well, when the notification fires, the first thing that's going to happen is, or when the notification script step is queued, sorry, let me rephrase that, right? When we fire this script step, if notifications are not allowed, if they are disabled, it is immediately going to try to run whatever script we have identified to be run right here. and it's going to return a parameter in the second line that says notifications not allowed. Now that's actually pretty useful, right? Because maybe what I would want to do is in my notification queue script is test at the very top if they're not allowed and submit a message to the user that says, please turn on notifications. They're really going to be helpful to you in the following ways, right? If they are allowed, when that queuing script runs, it's just going to queue the notification to the operating system. FileMaker's done. Nothing else happens until the notification presents itself, either immediately or after some delay. When it presents itself, if the user does nothing, nothing happens. But if the user clicks on that notification, we're going to get back in this second parameter here, notification selected. It's going to call that script and it's going to provide us a parameter that says they selected the notification, right? They clicked on it. However, if we configured some specific buttons, it's going to actually tell us what button it clicked, right? So we can have them perform a more discrete action without using FileMaker at all, right? Their user interface is the system OS level notification engine, right? So if they clicked on the second button that we identified, the parameter will tell us they clicked on the second button, right? A couple more things we get back. One is, was FileMaker in the background versus was it in the foreground when the notification, when the script was acted upon, either immediately because we couldn't send a notification or later after they did something, right? Why does that matter? Well, it matters because if it's in the foreground, maybe we don't want to interrupt what the user's doing immediately by doing a different thing, right? Maybe we want to fork our logic if it's in the foreground versus the background. And then lastly, we can set a script parameter with the script that we identify. And if we do so, that will be returned to the script that gets called as a fourth parameter. Okay, and then they have some examples. So pretty straightforward. All right, let's look at how that manifests itself. So to play with this, I went out and started a brand new file. I used the starter file of tasks, which is one of the starter files that FileMaker includes by default. With FileMaker 2024, they've included it for a while, right? And I've slightly modified this starter file in a few ways. Let's look at a few ways that I modified it. The first thing I did was I added a task ID, right? So my idea was, hey, I want to be able to queue notifications for tasks, but then I want to be able to call back to that ID. And even though I've got a primary key here, that primary key is a big old long UUID, and I don't want to bother passing something that clunky into my notifications engine, so I want a simpler ID that I can expose to the end user, right? So I created a simple serial number task ID, 1000 and counting, 1001, 1002, 1003, right? So what's my task ID? Created a task ID. I also changed due date, completion date from dates to timestamps because I wanted a little bit more granular playing with, is this thing due or is it not due? When is it due? Is it overdue? Things like that, right? So I changed them from dates to timestamps. I think in a lot of cases, if we have tasks, timestamps are the logical thing that we would choose. And then lastly, I created this, is it overdue, right? And I'm simply testing for, hey, is this still due today or was it due previously, so I can do some different things, right? So I made those simple changes to this table, and then I wrote a couple of scripts. So the first script is kind of my download of everything I just talked through with you on the help page. Am I thinking through, like, how would I use this, right? So this is my queue notification script. The second script is my simple initial crack at what would an action script look like if they're doing the notification, right? So queue the notification, do the notification. Now you could have slice and dice this up any number of ways, right? Queuing notification could be part of a larger script where you've dealing with internal notifications or other things elsewhere. There's any number of ways you might want to do that. But in this particular case, I just have a very simple model of queue the notification and do the notification, right? So how am I queuing the notification? So first of all, the name. Like I said, it needs to be unique. So in my case, I'm naming it the table name dot the task ID. I'm doing it that way because maybe I have notifications that I want to act on from 3 or 4 or 5 different places, right? So it's this kind of a notification versus that kind versus the other kind. And when it gets called from back, I'm going to need to be able to fork and take them one place or the other place, right? So, my idea was table name dot task ID, right? So setting that in a variable. And then what script am I running? Now, the way this thing works, I'll just kind of jump way down here to the bottom. This is the script step. Looks like this. When I specify a script, I cannot specify the script name programmatically, right? I got to choose the script. So I'm not choosing which script I'm running up here. I'm choosing it down here, but I am setting a variable for a parameter that goes into that script, right? So what script am I running? Then what delay do I want to have? So my logic was, hey, if it's due in the future, more than 5 minutes from now, let's queue it with a 5-minute warning. If it's due now or overdue, let's queue it immediately. Let's show it right now. Boom, hey, you got this thing to do, right? So I have the delay set in seconds. Now I looked. Is there anywhere that tells me how many seconds I can put in that? And I tried over 100,000 and it worked. So to the best of my knowledge, the answer is no. But my general thought would be probably be careful about setting notifications way too far into the future. That may have a variety of unintended consequences, right? So maybe pick a cutoff, a week, a day, something like that, and set them reasonably into the future, or maybe don't set them beyond that. I also added an additional function because one of my buttons, jumping ahead here, one of my button actions is going to be snooze that notification, right? I haven't done it yet, but remind me in a little bit, right? In my case, I decided to make snooze exactly the same as it is on my Apple Watch when I snooze my alarm in the morning, 9 minutes, right? So basically, and in fact, I didn't actually make it 9 minutes because I did bad math. Let's fix that. Okay, somebody help me with the math on the fly. 60 times 9, 540, right?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Yes.
Told you it was live in real time. So I make it 9 minutes snooze if it's snooze, right? So if I'm calling this with the script parameter of snooze, I'm going to delay the notification for 9 minutes. The title, what is it going to be called? Again, this is the thing in bold that says, here's your notification, right? It's the most prominent thing. So in my case, the title is simply the task name, unless it's a priority of high or it's overdue, in which case it's urgent : task name, right? Body, right? So this is the text that comes below the task name, and your system is going to decide how much of that shows. So be careful, writing an entire paragraph may not be received. It's going to show the first few words. So I'm just showing the task description. And again, if it's overdue, I'm blending in that it's overdue how many days, right? Then we get down to the buttons, right? So the buttons are the specific things that I can allow a user to do specifically from the notification without interacting directly with FileMaker. So in my case, what I came up with here was I want to be able to snooze it. I want to be able to tell my system that I've already done it. And I want to be able to tell my system I'm doing it right now, right? I want to do 3 slightly different things in those circumstances. For whatever reason you're using the notifications, you might want to use those buttons for various reasons or not use them at all. They do not have to be specified. So in my case, it's snooze, already did it, and doing it now. Something to keep in mind is whatever you name that button, that is what is passed in as that second parameter, right? So name it something that you can and want to test for, something that is not duplicative of another thing, because the first one is going to win, right? So I, in my case, button 1 label is snooze, and there's a related function which is called foreground, right? And all that means is if FileMaker's in the background, should I bring it into the foreground when they act on the notification? So in my case, for snooze, no, I don't need to bring FileMaker in the foreground to snooze it. If they say already did it, I do want to bring it into the foreground because I want to ask when they did it, right? And I'm not going to be able to do that with that notification UI. I'm going to have to present a dialog in FileMaker to answer that, right? And then if it's doing it now, I also don't need it in the foreground because I'm just going to mark it done, right? So with all of that, I came up with my logic around all those settings, and I went in and configured my very long dialog with those different parameters, right? Dollar parameter, dollar delay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to cue that notification. And just because I'm kind of debugging this, I also gave myself a simple show dialog that it happened, right? Notification queued. Probably wouldn't do that in a production system. When this notification is acted on, or when notifications are disallowed, the do notification script is going to be fired either immediately or when the user acts on the notification, right? So what do I want to have happen here? Well, first of all, I probably want to parse apart what this thing is telling me incoming, right? So what I did was I grabbed the first 4 different parameters and I named the thing that they are, right? So the first parameter is a notification name, second parameter is a notification action, third parameter is foreground, fourth parameter is notification parameter, right? So I just pulled those out, stuck them in variables so I could test for them and use them. And then I parsed apart my particular notification name model so that I could separately distinguish what table is it from what ID is it, right? Just following the convention that I set up with. Simple stuff, right? So I'm just setting what those parameters are to front end. And then I'm doing some simple logic to say, what do I want to do with it, right? So if the notification action is notifications not allowed, I want to kindly ask the user to enable notifications. That's what I want to do. If the notification action is they just clicked on the notification, they didn't choose one of those buttons, they didn't tell me snooze or already did it or doing it now, they just clicked on it. Then what I want to do is just simply take them to the task that they clicked on. All right, that makes sense. Now, maybe I would want to do additional things. Maybe I would want to prompt them then to fill out the task or something else. But in my case, I'm just taking them to the task that they clicked on, right? So pretty simple. Go to layout, perform find for the task ID presented, right? And if it was some other table, maybe I would want to do some other thing. Maybe it's the same deal, or maybe it's a different model. But then finally, if they click on one of those buttons, then maybe I want to do some more specific things, right? So down here in my else, if the notification action was snooze, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to mark that task as postponed, and I'm going to spawn a new notification, right? With the parameter of snooze, which is going to spawn the same notification, but for 9 minutes from now, right? If the notification, if they clicked on I already did it, then what's going to happen is I'm going to bring them here, right? Bring them here, find the notification in question, and so I kind of forgot to actually add that to my scripting, because like I said, I did it this morning rapidly. I'm going to bring them here, find the notification in question, and say, hey, when did you complete that task, right? And then mark it as completed and commit the record. And then lastly, if I'm doing it now, right? Hey, I'm doing it now. I'm going to, in the background, do the same thing, right? I'm going to go in here, I'm going to mark it completed, and set the date. Okay, so I'm going to dismiss this. We're going to, just because, we want to step it through real fast, I'm going to bring up the script debugger so we can watch it queue, right? So I'm going to queue a notification for walk the dog, and note my notification is presently not marked as complete and is overdue. All right, so I'm going to queue a notification for walk the dog, which was due this morning at 10 a.m. Now, lucky for me, I don't actually have a dog, so it's okay. But, if I did, I'm a little bit behind the curve, right? So I'm going to queue a notification for walk the dog, right? So let's do that. I'm going to go through here, set the name, etc. Let's just pop this up so we can kind of see it as it goes, right? So the parameter is home, that's the category. Here's my name for my notification. I'm going to set my delay. Why is it 0? It's 0 because it's past due, right? So I want to present the notification immediately. I'm not snoozing. I've got the title here, walk the dog. Now my is it overdue test only tests for the day, not the minute, so I'm not calling it overdue yet. And I'm going to set up my buttons, right? My snooze button, my already did it button, my doing it now button, and now I'm going to configure that local notification and queue it. Okay, so local notification queued. Now, what we've got here is my notification. Walk the dog. Find, leash, and walk the dog. Don't forget the poop bag. Okay, notification queued. Now, I can do several things with this notification, right? I can just ignore it. Note that if I ignore it, absolutely nothing happens. If I ignore this for days and then click the clear all, absolutely nothing's going to happen. The next thing is only going to happen if your user acts on that notification. So if I pull that notification back up, I have two different ways of acting on it, right? And using the Mac, I can simply click anywhere in this box, and that will action the notification but not choose a button. Or I can click in these options, and the options present me with the 3 different buttons. Now, this is going to act differently on Windows, but it works basically the same way, right? It's going to look a little different, works the same way, same basic idea. So in my case, let's start by simply acting on the notification, right? So this is going to call here, and it is going to parse this thing apart. It is then going to step down here, and we're going to step into this section, because what it noted was that I simply selected a notification, I didn't hit a button, right? And it's task detailed, and it's going to take me to this script, right? Or this layout, sorry. Now, to make that more obvious, let's change something a little bit, right? Let's queue the same notification without the debug on. And let's just come somewhere completely different, right? And now I'm going to look at that notification. I'm going to go, oh yeah, there it is, worked, right? Took me right to that location, found that particular record. Now, let's do the same thing again, only this time we'll queue the notification, and let's try our buttons, right? So I'm going to turn the debugger back on, and let's go in here and let's say, hey, I already did it, right? Note that the script is running here, and it's parsing things apart. Let me get this back so we can see, right? It's parsing this apart, and we're stepping down into our 3rd section, right? So we're now saying, oh, he clicked the already did it button. I'm going to go to the right layout, I'm going to perform the right record, and I'm going to present the dialog. Great. When did you walk the dog? Okay. And, if this was an end user, I probably wouldn't make them hand type out a timestamp. Just saying. But, quick and dirty debug. I actually did it on time. I just forgot to say that I did it, right? And I'm going to mark it as completed, and we're done, right? So we can see that work. Now, one more thing. let's do the background. And I think this is where this is kind of a cool concept, right? So, I'm going to actually change this to yesterday. And it is my job in the evening in general, by the way, to load the dishwasher. And it is usually due in the evening. So let's actually call this 6 p.m. here. 6 p.m. And let's cue that notification, right? Now, my testing worked. It's reminding me urgent, load the dishwasher, overdue, find all the dishes and load the dishwasher. Okay, shoot, right. So I run home, and I load the dishwasher, and I want to tell my system that I got it done, right? Now, let's actually make this a little bit more realistic here, right? Let's stick something else in the foreground, right? I'm going to say, hey, doing it now. Okay, she didn't notice. All right. What happened, though, was in the background, without it surfacing FileMaker, it went and did the thing I asked it to do, right? It found the record, it marked it as completed, and it did not put in the completion time. Oh, no, it did. It put in the right now completion timestamp, yeah, in the background, right? So I think as I look at this feature, you know, there's two things of use that I think are really notable. One is my UI is not FileMaker, right? It's the operating system. The user's attention can be elsewhere. And the second one is I can let them tell me something without them having to do it in the foreground, right? They can tell me without surfacing FileMaker. All right, so there it is. That's my presentation. Now, what is Dennis's question?
Hi, Steve. Here's my question. Actually, this is funny because it was going to be a two-part question, but I'm glad I waited to the very end because you demonstrated the first part of my question, which is something being in the foreground. Or in the case of somebody on Windows, if FileMaker is their foreground app, if something else is their foreground app, let's say Safari or whatever else they're doing, they never see the message that occurs when they've got a cursor in a field and I'm trying to access that record. And I click the message button to tell them, please release that record, I need to use it. So here's the second part of my question. Suppose you are that person and I'm trying to communicate to you, and you've run home to load the dishwasher and left your cursor in that field. Will you see the notification on your phone that's in your pocket when you're on your way home to load the dishwasher?
Yeah, and the answer is I certainly will not.
This notification is local to wherever my app is running, right? So the only instance in which I would, so I guess I shouldn't say certainly will not, likely will not is probably the more right answer, would be if I also had FileMaker Go running and I also had the same kind of notifications engine queuing with Go, and it was queuing locally to my phone. In which case, I would see that notification, but that's actually not where I've got my cursor in the field, so not a huge help. So it is very specific to the user environment in which FileMaker is running, right? So great question. Keep that in mind because it does limit the scope of where this is useful to you.
One of the options might be in a notification like that, which you could detect, by getting an error, that would cause your script to run. One of your reply options could be, I'm not at my desk right now, but I'm on my way back.
Yeah. Yep. But we would need to use a different kind of notification engine to deliver that notification.
Got it.
Doc also has the same.
Thanks. Thank you, Steve.
All right. And
Doc has his hand up.
Doc.
Yeah, having dealt with some rather contrarian user communities, is there a way using AppleScript to, let's say, we detect that the notifications are off for FileMaker, and then use AppleScript or some other scripting mechanism to force that user's notifications to turn on for FileMaker?
Yeah. I don't know. Does anyone on the call know?
If it's like remote notifications for iOS apps, like native ones, the answer would be no. The user has control over if any notifications show up, whether that's with the focus feature or on an app-by-app basis in the iOS settings. I think it's probably the same for local notifications.
I would guess so as well. Now, we can, of course, be a little bit clever, right? Because what we can see here, I just turn notifications off and I just queued a notification, and FileMaker immediately
ran the script, and I tested, and therefore I was given this dialog, right?
Mhm.
We could make that a startup condition, right? So if we're in a business environment where the business rule is you will have notifications on for FileMaker, we can make that a startup condition and say, per the terms of your employment, you need to have notifications running. It is not currently running. Turn it on and boot them out of the system until they do so, right? So, I mean, you can handle it in that way.
Okay.
But I do believe that it is, the user's control on the setting itself.
There are some sort of edge case conditions where even if they have opted in to receive notifications for a particular app, one of the conditions being if the battery level drops below a certain point, iOS will throttle things like notifications, so it doesn't keep waking up the device. So there are some other things that aren't even just specifically user settings.
So definitely not a panacea, right? I think it's better to think of notifications from my perspective as more a carrot and less the stick. Hopefully we're presenting notifications that are helpful and useful to users, not annoying them.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to rely on it.
It is not your only method.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. All right, with that, let's stop there on notifications and let's go to the next contestant.
So my name is Brian. I work at Harmonic Data. I've been here a couple of years. Done FileMaker development for probably 20 some odd years, long time. And prior to coming here, I did a lot of iOS Swift development. That is somewhat important because the feature I'm going to talk about, from all appearances, looks like it was lifted directly out of Xcode, where I spent a lot of time. There's a lot of, in apps like, for iOS apps, for instance, it's all code-based, right? There's no real sort of layout feature. And so you're traversing thousands and thousands of lines of code, tens of thousands, for a large project, and getting around in an app like that that's got dozens of files and tens of thousands of lines of code, hundreds of functions probably, can be difficult to get around and try to jump right to a function that you want to call. And so in Xcode, there is a open quickly feature that lets you go to a particular file, lets you go to a particular, you can jump right to a particular variable, a class, a function. And so that makes it very, very helpful. And so what Claris has done, thankfully, is they have adopted this. This feature, like I said, was in one or two versions ago. I forget if it was 19 or when it appeared exactly, but there was an open quickly feature in FileMaker, but it was basically restricted to, you had to be in layout mode in order to even get the open quickly box to show up. And from there you could navigate. It basically replicated the manage layouts window. So you could type in a layout name and jump right to it without having to contend with a second window. So very limited use. But what they've done with this new version is they've added a lot to it. For starters, it is system-wide now. It operates in all modes: browse mode, find mode. You can have a file that's not even open, and you can use the Open Quickly feature. So it is much more useful now. So let me show you that real quick. This is a file that I built many years ago for an organization I used to be part of. So the Open Quickly feature, you access this on Mac, it's Command K. On Windows, it's Control K. So I'm on a Mac, so I'll do Command K, and I'll get this very small Open Quickly window here. And if I just start typing something like a layout, if I want to go to an artist layout, artist detail, oops, it will autocomplete as you type, which is great. It shows I'm logged in as a full access user, so I'm seeing everything that matches artist. So these first options here are layouts. This icon indicates that it's an artist detail layout, a web layout. There's an artist call, anything that matches the word artist. Doesn't even have to be the beginning of the string. It can be at the end or somewhere in the middle. If you scroll down further, if you have a long enough list of matches, you'll start seeing other icons. This is a script icon, sort of a little scroll paper-looking icon. And these are all the scripts, script names, I should say, that match the word artist. And so you'll have, if you're logged in full access, you will see a very lengthy list probably in a lot of your solutions, just due to the number of layouts and scripts that you will have. So selecting one of these, right now I'm on the volunteer layout for this system. So if I go back to artist, and I should go to artist detail, if I hit return, it will just take me right to that layout in the same window that I was previously in. I can get back to the volunteer detail layout the same way. If I go to, say, there's a layout here in the system called bands, the bands that used to play at these events. What I'm going to do this time, though, is I'm going to hold the Option key down. So when you have a list of search results, if you hold down the Option key, actually I'm going to do this with a longer list. It'll be a little easier to see. So from the search results list, if you hold the Option key down, it's very subtle, but you'll probably see, it may not come across on this.
It's coming.
It's coming across all right?
Yeah.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah, we can see it.
So the icon will change slightly. So for layouts, this card-looking icon will shift to a sort of a stacked card. As far as scripts go, the Option key turns into basically a play button or a run script type button. So not only can you, and in the case of layouts, if I hold down the Option key and go to Artist Detail, it will take me to Artist Detail in a second window, in a new window. If you don't hold it down, it will just use the window that you're currently operating in. If I go to Bands and hold the Option key down, I'll have the Bands layout in a second window. The other thing is that if you, how should I put it? There's, some of you may be already concerned about users seeing things just by Command K and kind of fishing around for scripts and layouts, which is totally legitimate concern. This is all managed by a couple of things, really. One thing that's obvious would be if you're in the Manage Layouts window, anything that's got a check mark that would normally be visible, to your end user, will be visible in the search results. If it's not checked, it will not. It won't show up in the search results as you type. So that's one way of controlling what users can see. One problem with that is a lot of systems are wired up to with scripts that go to layout and pass various parameters and things so that the layout and the record get get loaded in a particular state, right? So you're passing maybe, a half dozen different parameters, in a script when you go to a layout. This does not do that, of course. It just navigates directly to the layout. So that's another thing you want to keep in mind. If you've got a simple enough layout that doesn't need to be manipulated or put in a very particular or specific state, and it's just a navigation issue, then this feature would be useful. Otherwise, you might want to stay away from it, or at least hide the layout from the Manage Layouts window. The other way is with a privilege set. Let me go ahead and open this up. So if you go to Advanced Settings and you go to a particular privilege set, down here for scripts, as long as it's modifiable or executable and checked in the scripts workspace, then a script will show up in the search results. Same for layouts. If it's modifiable or view only, then and it's also checked in the Manage Layouts window, it will show in the search results. But like I said, that may not be. There may be layouts that you want to present or make available to an end user, but you don't want them to just navigate to it without, running a particular script. And so basically, this is a newer feature. So what you're sort of limited to, if you don't want a user to just navigate to it directly, you have to do that with the custom menu. So you would need to create a custom menu. The shortcut, Open Quickly, is in the File menu. So if you needed to, keep your end users out of the Open Quickly window, you would need to remove it from here, because the Apple K or Command K, Control K shortcut is going to be available otherwise. So even if you have all your layouts and all your scripts unchecked in the Manage windows, if they type Command K, they're still going to get at least the window to do a search in, even if it can't find anything. So that is one of the caveats of using this, really. I think it's going to be much more useful for developers. I've been pining for it secretly for many, many years because I'm used to the behavior in Xcode. And I used it, that's about the only way I used Xcode to get around in larger projects. It was just so much faster than using menus or jump bars or, the equivalent of a Manage Layouts, window. So as far as restricting that, we can go back to in the custom menus. One way would be to have a custom menu load only for a particular type of user or privilege set. Then the command, the Open Quickly window would be available if it's an end user or someone other than a super user. Then you could hide it outright that way. So there's several ways you can sort of manage what shows up in the search results. If you are in, so I've showed you layouts and scripts. The other thing it will do is open files. So you don't even need to use the open host window to navigate to something. Anything that is in your favorites or recent or is currently open. So if you got a file open and you do Command K, it's going to search across that file, of course. But it doesn't have to be a file that's open. I'm in this ArtCon database, but I've got another file called Partners that's not open at all right now. I haven't logged into it or anything. But because it's in my favorites, I can just type in Partners, and the file that is not open is available here, and I can launch it right from the Open Quickly, which is great because doing that, it just saves lots of clicks and keeps your desktop a little less cluttered.
Yes, sir. Robert in the chat pointing out that custom menu can let you remove the Open Quickly feature.
But since the feature grants access to available scripts and layouts from all open files, simply creating a new file and calling open quickly from that new file can still reveal things you meant not to be available by removing the menu item via custom menu.
Ah, that is good to know. I did not know that.
Can I add to that, Paul? For somebody who's got an existing solution running, and as Paul said, it could be with multiple files, there'd be a considerable amount of retroactive work to do in order to control open quickly.
Yes.
To me, it seems like the forgotten element in it is that we weren't given a script step that could be put into your on open script to disable it globally until you've done that development work, and then you can more granularly decide how and where people should be able to use open quickly. Because if a layout, for example, has a on layout enter trigger going and you open that layout, it's going to fire. And there is certainly scripts you don't want people to view, let alone run.
Right. No, exactly.
So I'm begging for, as soon as possible, just a script step that would allow you to control whether or not it's in the menu before you even begin the work of making your custom menus.
No, agreed. It's a, you could call it a blind spot. I'm not sure if Claris was intending to direct this primarily at developers. But for end users, it would, unless you're just, working on a file yourself or in a very, very small team, or your system is just, something very, very simple and concise. It's definitely an issue potentially.
It seems if they're aiming at developers at the moment, it's aimed at developers who have clients with unlimited budgets for retroactive work.
Yeah.
Because the client goes into the new version of FileMaker and they're happy that they've updated, and all of a sudden problems start popping up with an expensive fix.
Yes. And I would imagine there will probably be a few horror stories that pop up on the community or elsewhere. People that are maybe unaware of the feature or just haven't had the time or the budget to remove some of that, or at least control it, before end users upgrade. So it's definitely something to be aware of. Just for developers, it's going to be, I think, I'm used to the feature from Xcode, so I've been waiting for this for a long time. Not having to deal with the script window, the script workspace, or the manage layout window, or even the file open window for that matter. It's just a quicker way, for me to get to those things, especially in a larger system that might have dozens of files and maybe aren't sure of the spelling of some of those files. I think for certain groups of people that maybe aren't used to, they don't have the muscle memory, for the manage layouts window and the script workspace. It might take some time to kind of rewire your brain to get used to the feature. But it is, for me personally, it's going to be a big time saver.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting, I haven't played with it extensively, but I think it's worth noting that while it does, there's no way to get rid of it without a custom menu, and that's not a universal fix, as Robert articulates. It is limiting what it presents the user to what that user can really already do, right? So if your file is in the layout dialog, your user can switch to that layout directly.
Right.
If the script is in the script menu, your user can actuate the script.
Yes.
Now, maybe you've done something as a developer, like say, hey, I'm never going to expose my user to the taskbar where they can get to the layout menu.
Right.
Well, that's possible, right? And that's an easy fix, but I would argue that that's a cheap hack way. If you don't want them to be able to access the layout via the layout menu, unclick it, right? And then they can't access it.
Right.
If you don't want them to be able to run a script by clicking on script in script menu, don't leave it checked, right? So I think it's worth not panicking too much about what it gives you access to, because it is controlling what people can access by what they have permissions to for those files. It's not wild, wild west.
Oh, no.
And this is great. So now we're going to get on to our final presenter. Discussions get started, and that's why we want you all to travel from your various lands of Arizona. Go ahead, Paul. From your various lands of Arizona and Pennsylvania and Ohio, and come on out to see us. All right, take it away.
Cool. I'm going to be talking about two of the new calculation functions. And those are first the get live text as JSON. The first one of those looks at the, basically it's an extension of the get live text function, which came out in 19.5 and really wasn't on my radar until I started looking at this. But the point is it reads container data and extracts text data from it. So the original get live text function would return this kind of text. So it's just reading the text off the image, and it's even grabbing here this image flip. It's even grabbing this little logo down here in the corner of the meme. But it isn't perfect. For instance, it is missing a space here between these words, and so I started playing with this, and so. Get live text as JSON, what it does is it then returns all this formatted as JSON. And it adds the coordinates of each text block. And my thought on the use of this is, at least my initial thought, I'm sure somebody will come up with things I haven't thought of, but my thought on the initial use of this would be to be able to get form data that's being presented as an image and being able to parse a form by identifying, okay, I'm expecting this data at these coordinates, that data at those other coordinates, and being able to parse that kind of data.
Can you go ahead and zoom in a little bit more on your screen there?
So I played with a number of things to try to get what kind of limitations it had. So for example, on the new certification, it pulls the text very nicely, all the spaces and everything. As JSON, it identifies what those coordinates are. But I threw in a number of different things. Here's the image for this meeting, and it grabs it very nicely. Claire's FileMaker Pro, but it doesn't have a space in between in the middle of FileMaker Pro. 2024 reads just fine. Our favorite features. It's missing the open parenthesis, but it catches the closed parenthesis. So I haven't found a pattern to some of this yet, but I think some of this is interesting to look at. Tilda Swinton and FileMaker Pro, the motion picture. Again, we're missing a space here. I think it's obvious in the meme. Again, it caught the image flip icon there. This is just a desktop icon for an Excel file. I do not know what it's reading that is pulling ES2 off of.
The icon on the far left.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. It's capturing that. It's not getting all of the word import. It is getting all these digits here very neatly. So.
The reason it didn't get the T in import is because that character is a ligature.
Yeah.
Good point.
Okay.
Wait. What? Explain.
The R is connected to the T.
Oh, it's just connected. Okay, there you go. All right. It appears connected.
It seems to have, and unsurprisingly, it seems to have a little more trouble with handwriting. So, for instance, I'm not sure where this is coming from. I'm sorry, this is not the top of the field. There we go. So I/O, it's reading I10 as I/O. things that take talent and adding an extra L. Of course, the person doing the writing was writing in all capital, mostly capital letters. And so it looks really weird when you put it out. It captures the 100%, but it didn't capture the 0. At first I thought maybe the red text made a difference, but it doesn't seem to. And so it has some trouble reading handwriting, probably more trouble than you or I would have.
This looks like how a dog would spell those words.
A pug dog. All right. This is just an old infographic that I've had hanging around for some time. I think it does a reasonably good job with this. But again, it's apparently translated it's missed a character here. What was that, Doc?
Qualification.
I don't know that word.
It's there. It's how it interpreted qualification.
Oh, okay.
Or misinterpreted would be more accurate.
There will be lots of opportunities to mock its errors. I wondered, could it read a coin? It seems to have difficulty with curved text. It got the 2020 very nicely. But other than that, it seems to have some real difficulties with curved text.
What about the text on that one?
That's what I'm saying.
No. You're looking at the JSON, but it seemed like the text would result in, okay. Gotcha.
It had no clue what to do with my logo. Not very surprising. That's very custom calligraphy.
It's just question mark.
Did reasonably well with this poster. It identified this as a trademark symbol, but it was just a circular element there. Likewise, it identified this one as an O. And where I'm blocking the text, it's doing its best to interpret what it can see. See, I've got this partial M here, and it identified it as an R. That seems pretty reasonable. So I think it's doing a reasonably good job for the most part. But there are places where it's weaker than others. This is an embroidery my wife made, and the text in this is in Latin. And still, it's done a reasonably good job of capturing the letters that are on here, even though it's they're very irregular. It's not a font. It's not even handwriting. It's embroidery. So I thought that was an interesting level of success there. It's another infographic. I noticed that here where it says the past and the future as void space in that bar, didn't seem able to read that at all. So if this is something that you want to be using on a regular basis, you're going to want to have an idea of what some of the limitations are.
YMMV.
Yeah. Your mileage may vary.
Question, Paul. So the get live text function has some very specific operating system and version requirements to it. And I'm looking at the help and the answer is not obvious. Do you think get live text to JSON is the exact same requirements?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I think the only thing is it's now pulling out the JSON, the coordinates, and then formatting the output as JSON.
So it's worth calling out then for everybody in the room virtually and whatnot that effectively this is an iOS, iPad OS, Mac OS thing because it is dependent on Apple's embedded text recognition methodology.
I believe that's right.
Yeah.
Paul, have you tried a PDF?
I have, and I've got a couple here at the end. But I thought I would try this. Made a valiant attempt at the harmonic logo. But it had no problem with the text underneath, and that's just reading it off a photograph of a t-shirt. So I thought that was pretty good. The Claris FileMaker certified developer. Oddly, it couldn't read FileMaker. It's got the 17, but it couldn't read FileMaker, and it didn't put the space in certified developer. Here it got FileMaker, but not quite.
FileMaker.
I also noticed it reads from top to bottom and then from left to right. So it's going down and then down again.
Huh.
I've noticed with amusement, it identified the blue check mark as an E. Otherwise, it reads tweets just fine.
Oh dear.
Some of this is weird on purpose. This is actually in the image. That's an actual correct quotation right here.
I love that.
What's interesting is it seems to return ASCII characters, and when it had acrylic characters like in the slide before, those just got converted to the closest ASCII.
Yeah. It cannot handle very much in the way of cursive. I think the one word it got on this one is Congress.
The one that's nearly in print.
Yeah.
Nice to know it's just as poor at reading cursive as the rest of the
It's
younger generation.
It's also not good with calligraphy, although this is not the most clear image. But again, it has difficulty with both calligraphy and curved text. So I would have expected maybe to get Tempelhof Central Airport, but it didn't. It did get my name, mostly. And that's, well, pretty much in calligraphy here. This is not a very clear image at this size. But, yeah, it didn't do very well with very much of this either, even though that's not calligraphy. Tried some corporate logos. Yeah, so. Kind of got the simplest stuff. It's at an angle, and so that may have caused a problem here. This one it did pretty well with. This is another handwriting experiment, and it didn't go great. Got that. It got the name Inigo Montoya though. That kind of surprised me. This is an embroidered banner. Did pretty well with that. No clue about this logo. This one, it did great on this comic strip. It's doing top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom in this text. Okay. Fred is giving me the wind it up signal here.
Does this work calculation on server if you do perform script on server?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer. Steve is looking at the spec right now.
I mean, obviously it'd be if you had a Mac as your server, but all the more reason to call it if you've got like Windows or whatever.
Mm-hmm. This one, it reads perfectly, and I think part of that is the way that the text is organized from top to bottom. These last two are PDFs, and it doesn't seem able to read them at all. I was not able to find anything that specified what file format it's looking for. It just said container data, but I haven't yet found a PDF that it would read.
I tried inserting a PDF as using insert picture, and it made no difference. But I found that the Monkey Bread plugin apparently can do that. I haven't tested it yet.
Can't say I'm very surprised. So in the calculation itself, it's just a very simple thing. Get live text as JSON, specify the source of the container data, and then specify the language you want it to return, or the language you want it to be looking for.
Oh, I was going to ask you that. I didn't know that was one of the parameters.
That's one of the parameters.
That's part of iOS 18 coming out.
Mm-hmm.
So
and the get live text is the exact same parameters. It just doesn't return JSON.
It appears to be Pro and Go only right now, not server.
Okay. See, Steve says not on server. The other thing I'm going to show you very quickly, because I'm 5 minutes or 7 minutes over time, is JSON make array, where we take a list and turn it into a JSON array. So this is simply a list of names, and it returns it as a JSON array. I took the extra step of formatting it.
You took my idea. I was going to. Second favorite feature.
Yep. So
yeah, how many of us have had to write whiles doing all those things?
I was just going to say to do this. Otherwise, you need a while statement, maybe a custom function. Yeah. So now it's native. That's what I've got to show. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here. I'm out.
All right, we want to thank you all for coming here today. Taylor, I'm going to turn this back over to our team speed if you have anything that you would like to add as we close off.
The only thing I would say is remember, Pause on Air is coming up. Hope to see a few of you there. Don't sign up at the last minute or you'll have to camp in a tent. So sign up quickly.
All right, thank you all very much. We're going to eat some burgers, which hopefully will retain some warmth because they showed up half hour. It happens. Bye, everybody.